Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world today. My name is Janet. I'm working through the King James's Bible today, and I will be covering the book of Chronicles, part 2, and in there we'll be going over today chapters 26, 27, and 28. So let's get started. So yesterday we left off with King Amaziah. Now he is dead. So we've appointed a new king, which is his son. And in chapter 26, the doors opened to this new king. His name is Uzziah. And he's only 16 years old when he takes over the reign from his father. But he reigns for a total of 52 years in Jerusalem. And he did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, and he prospers. So let's get into what happens with this king. So he begins with, he goes to war with the Philistines, and he's got God on his side, so he manages to destroy a lot of their cities and the walls and things around them, and then he builds his own cities amongst them. Now God helped him defeat the Philistines, the Arabians, and the Meunites. He's also got the Ammonites under tribute, and his power and fame is growing amongst the nations around him, to as far as the entrance of Egypt. Now he fortifies the city of Jerusalem, so he's making sure that's a lot more stronger. He's building towers, he's increased his livestock, the vineyards, and he's digging wells, and he's got everything really well managed. It kind of reminds me of Solomon's times, when he had everything so well organised. His army is also expanding, and he's got 2,600 chief officials who are taking care of the 370,000 soldiers that are now in the Judah and Benjamin camp. King Uzzah has also equipped his soldiers with swords, with shields, with helmets, with bows, with devices for throwing stones. They have everything they need to battle well with whichever enemy is going to come at them, or I guess whichever they decide to go after. So King Uzzah's fame is growing, his prosperity is growing, and his numbers are growing as well. And when he became this powerful as a king, he ends up slipping away slightly from God's laws. And what he does is he goes into the temple of the Lord, he goes into the area where they burn the incense, and that is not where a king is allowed. And he starts burning his own incense right in there. Now the high priest Azariah and 8 other priests in there see him doing this, and they're like, get out of here, you're not supposed to be in here, this is our sanctuary, it's meant to be us, this is what the Lord has written down, you need to leave. Now he starts getting angry with these priests, and all of a sudden his forehead, his skin starts showing leprosy. So the priests quickly see this happening to him. They're like, you have leprosy. It's like, get him out. So they like thrust him out of the temple. He wants to get out because he knows the Lord has struck this disease upon him. And now it says the King Uzzah will have this leprosy until he dies. So he has to live in isolation. And his son, Jotham, he goes into the palace and he sort of starts reigning over the Israelites, but at the commandments of his father. So King Uzziah eventually dies. He is buried in the fields in the city of David because he has leprosy. So they won't bury him in a tomb with the fathers. He is left there to die. And his son Jotham is the next one in line to become king over Judah. And this is where we close chapter 26. So in chapter 27, we are going to be learning about King Jotham, who becomes king at age 25 years old. And he reigns for 16 years in Jerusalem. Again, he does right in the eyes of the Lord, but it says that the people act corruptly. So what did he do as king? Well, he built the upper gate to God's temple. Now that is creating a link to the palace and the temple. He knows that he needs that communion with God in order to reign correctly over the Israelites in Judah and to have that prosperity. So that is what he starts to do. So he builds a wall at Ophrah. He also builds fortresses and cities. He's starting to build up again more and getting more strength, and towers as well around Jerusalem and in different areas in his land. He goes into battle with the Ammonites and he wins. which ends up giving him 1 year at the start of 100 talents of silver that they have to give to him, along with lots of wheat and barley. Plus, the Ammonites continue to do this for the 2nd year and the 3rd year, it says. So King Jehotham actually became a really mighty king. And then he dies. So there's not great detail, there's not a lot of drama, it just shows that he's actually built a really stronger Jerusalem and a place for his people. So he's buried in the city of David along with his fathers, and then his son Ahaz, he becomes the next king. And this closes chapter 27. So chapter 28 goes into the details of King Ahaz, who is 20 years old when he becomes king, and he reigns over Jerusalem for 6 years. Sadly, he did not do right by God's laws. He was very much like the northern Israelite tribes, worshipping false gods, especially the god Baal. And he burns incense to them, he has altars for them. He is just pretty evil as he begins his reign over Judah. He even sacrificed his children to the god of Moloch. Now, this is a god where they end up having to heat the statue up, and then they burn the children on the statue, and while they are screaming, they're banging drums to drown out the noise as the child dies. And this is what this king did. It was just horrific. So for these great sins that he did, he was delivered into the hands of the Syrian king by God. And Ahaz was defeated, and many of his people were taken as captive to Damascus, where the king of Syria was from. Then the north side of Israel, they start raging war against them, and they kill 120,000 of the Judah camp in just 1 day. And Ahaziah's son, Maaseiah, he was also killed during this battle, plus 2 of his close officials, and plus 200,000 of Judah's people were captured and made captive. They were taken to Samaria along with all of their belongings. So they had this huge loot and all of those people. And so, this is a devastation to the Judah tribe. Now, as these people are being taken captive, a prophet by the name of Odad, he comes forth and he speaks the Lord's words. Now, he tells the Samarian army, on the northern side, the Israelite side, this is their northern army that we're talking about here, and he tells them basically, you're done wrong by God, basically by fighting amongst yourselves, killing their own brethren. Now they're taking their own brethren captive, and it's just beyond, you're going to suffer so badly, and this is going to be your wrath from God. And I'm coming and I'm giving you this message from him. Take heed. And they do. The leaders of Samaria, they start thinking about this and they're like, okay, yeah, we've already done pretty bad with the God of Israel. Let's let these people go. So they let them go in Jericho. Now, whilst all this is going on, King Ahaz sends out for help from the Assyrian kings because he'd been attacked by the Philistines and many of the Judah towns and villages had been taken. So much devastation going on right now for them. But the Assyrian kings will not come to his rescue. And he's already taken gold and silver from the temple of the Lord and he's given it to these kings who don't basically care. So he's sinned again further with God. He's lost the wealth within the temple, and Judah is on a really, really fast decline. So a distressed King Ahaz, what does he do? Do you think he would go back to the Lord and start worshipping? No, he just comes forward and he gets more of the gods from his enemies and starts worshipping them, thinking that they are going to save him, because he's like, well, if I praise to them, they will rise up. And so he kind of closes down God's temple. He starts putting up altars to them. And he's doing all these ceremonies towards these fake gods. It's just creating more and more chaos around him. So leaving the Judah tribe in such disrepair, he dies and he's buried in the city of David. But he's not given a tomb, and then his son, Hezekiah, he becomes the next king. And that is the end of today's chapter, chapter 28. So we can see 3 kings, very different, and the last king, Ahaz, has just been an abomination, really, to the Judah tribe, the people. They've all sort of gone down with him like a sunken ship. So Sadly, that is where we are with the Judah tribe. So we can see now that the Israelites are going into a fast decline. We've already got the northern side doing pretty badly, but they have just like, it's almost like has surpassed them. So if you want to carry on and find out, as we know a lot, if you've read the Book of Kings, you know where it's going to end. But we're getting a bit more detail in each story as we are going over each one again. So I'll leave that with you there, and I will be back again soon with more chapters within the Book of Chronicles 2. So have a lovely day and take care. Bye.